All right. So, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today for a Creative Month with One Club for Creativity. My name is Gianna Collier Pitts, and I'm a New York based actor and freelancer. But more importantly, for this conversation, I'm a Black bisexual who's always eager to see more media representation in the Black community. So I'm very excited to hear from our amazing panelists, Marcus Henderson, Post Production Operations Manager at VIACOM. We also have Ryan Sides, VP of Social Media at BET, and Empress Varnado, social producer at Empress Agency. So why don't we start off this conversation with how the three of you came together initially to create the Queer as Fuck initiative for BET and why you chose to do this.
Okay, I'll kick it off. Originally, I was on the social media team underneath Ryan Sides, and originally I wanted to do a social video around hip hop awards called Queer as Fuck, where we highlighted hip hop artists and rappers who were queer, and it didn't go through. And Marcus and I always had exchanged pleasantries at BET. And one day my coworker Giselle was like, you need to talk to Marcus. He wants us to go to the ball. And I really think this is a way for us to get Queer as Fuck back up and going. And so Marcus and I joined. It was instant synergy. Ryan was like, absolutely, absolutely, hell yes. Go ahead and create some content. And that's kind of what kicked it off.
So, okay, yeah. From my perspective as well, I've always been about like representation, as you just spoke about, in terms of my ministry, if you will, and I had been talking to a lot of people in the office about the representation. I'm seeing a lot of us in the office, and I was talking to Giselle about it. I was like, well, where are we on the screen? And then she connected me with Empress. It was, like she said, instant synergy. I'm also part of the ballroom community. I'm in the House of LaBeija, and there was a ball that was actually happening in the same building that we work in. And I was like, well, it's right downstairs. Why aren't we covering this? Rihanna is sponsoring it. Like, we should be there as leaders in Black culture. And hooked up with Ryan, greenlit it, and we were there.
That's pretty much it. So I joined BET fairly recently in March. All of this started taking off around like May, I would say, like May, June-ish. And so in joining BET, like that's one of the things that I wanted us to be a little bit more intentional about. And so Empress and Marcus brought this idea. I ran it through the appropriate channels, and it was like, let's move forward with this. And they just kind of brought it to life. So yeah.
That's great. And Marcus, you mentioned briefly that the first project for Queer as Fuck was this ballroom series called Ballroom: A Safe Space. So you said a little bit about how it originated, how you were actually a part of the ball culture here in New York, or in New York, I should say. And can you just give maybe a little background for people who might not know necessarily a lot about the ballroom culture and why it's significant within the Black LGBTQ community?
Well, the ballroom culture is significant, at least for me, because it's a safe space for one of expression. It originated as a Black empowerment movement with Crystal LaBeija, who would go on to form the first house. Originally, it was a safe space for transgendered women to transition safely. And then it became bigger as it expanded to the entire LGBT community of color. And so it became a place of creation, creativity. It became a place of self-expression, and one of particularly of celebration, is where we celebrate the same qualities that we would get oppressed for, or be oppressed for in mainstream society. So that's why it's so significant, because it's a place to go to be celebrated as who you are.
Absolutely. And Empress and Ryan, do you have any comments about this initial series that you all started for the Queer as Fuck campaign?
Yeah, it was super exciting. While I wasn't like raised in the ballroom community, like from early on, like after coming out, like I was very adjacent. Like my friends were in houses and in balls in Boston and Connecticut. And so like we would travel to New York often to go to the New York balls. And so it's always been something that's very important to me, very close to me. If you've seen Paris is Burning, I always liken myself to Freddie Pendavis, who was not in a house, but like he always helped out like the family members of the House of Pendavis. Like that was more so like my roles, like being there and like helping out. And I don't know, it's like because of like I've just been super protective of like how ballroom shows up, and I wanted BET to be as careful about our representation of ballroom as anyone else would be. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was nice to be a part of that in a way that was like authentic and like real to what ballroom is.
Yeah, for me, I've always wanted to go to a ball. Even though I'm queer, you know, I know that there are certain parts of the culture where someone has to invite you into it, right? So when Marcus was like, come through, I was like, it's my birthday. Me and Giselle went and it was everything I thought it would be. I think the really special thing about our ballroom videos is the fact that Marcus made sure that we had the LGBTQ on set. And that was really important for us. And everything we do when it comes to BET Queer as Fuck is just to have people of the community behind the scenes on set so that the community knows that all of us are a part of this. And so that was super special.
That's great. And what was the, the reception of this series? I watched it personally and I loved it. But how did, the folks in the ballroom community receive this? How did people, viewers receive this?
Well, a lot of people in the ballroom community, it was well received. And from the numbers that I've seen on social media, it did very well in mainstream society as well. Like Empress just shared, it was very important to have the LGBTQ be part of it in order to, give authenticity to it. And so that it was a piece of work that was created for us, by us. And that was, really important. So that's kind of what helped it be well received and accepted.
Yeah. And on the social side, it was one of those things where this was probably like our most ambitious project in terms of like stepping out of like the known BET voice, tone, aesthetic, what have you. Also knowing that BET has had like a storied past with like Black LGBTQ members. And so we wanted to test this and see how it performed, but also wanted to do it in a big way. And I think ballroom is like a big way to kind of like dip your toe in the water. And so it was largely like positive reception, both from like queer identifying people and hetero identifying people, saying like, hey, this is like super exciting. We love that you guys actually use people that were in the ballroom community in the videos. And then like for people that weren't familiar, it's like, oh, this is just like Pose, and like this is like what it's really like. And so I think also having like that touch point of like Pose in my house kind of like galvanized people, like got them, not galvanized, but like got them it was more of like an entry point. It's like what we were looking to do with this series.
Right. So with things like shows like Pose, you have this fictional storyline. You can see the reality of it with this series, and I think that's so amazing just to compare the two, and you can see a lot of that is authentic and real, and celebrate the people who are actually a part of it in the real world.
Exactly.
Definitely. And I know you also did a initiative for Black History Month called 29 Days of Queer Excellence on the social media, and kind of highlighting different community members through that. So what was, how did that idea emerge, and what was the selection process for the different individuals that you chose?
So I think the ballroom videos were kind of like our litmus test to go back to Ryan, and before Ryan, there was Ken to just say, hey, we want to create more content that people are asking for it. So Marcus and I sat down and we were just thinking of like, what do we want this to actually be? And Marcus was like, you know what, 2020 is just Black queer excellence. That's just the theme of the year. That's what we rolling with. So we decided that we would kick off February with 29 days of Black queer excellence. And every single day, we're just going to highlight the beauty, power, and diversity of the community. We decided that we wanted to highlight just everyday folk and some of your favorite people that you see on Instagram and give them their flowers in real time. So the selection process was super awesome because we got to highlight our friends, our family, and the people that you see on social media that you love. And we decided that a part of the campaign was just to be able to have them tell their stories in real time. So Ryan's idea was, well, usually on social, the point of social is that you make very small copy, make it small, make it poignant, and just make it clear. Ryan was like, nah, scratch that. We're gonna do it Humans of New York style. Every person gets to tell their story in their own way. And we just rolled with that. So the campaign was awesome because we decided that every day, every person would have their time. And on every single platform, we decided to post a picture with IG stories and their long narrative of who they were. And the community just showed up and showed out for them. The people who didn't like it, people were coming to their defense. It was amazing. It was probably bigger than we could have ever dreamed it would have been. And the best part is just that we really highlighted people who are doing the work every day.
Yeah, sort of, when Empress and I sat down and talked about it, what was important, because the 29 Days of Excellence was part of a, like she said, a bigger rollout of a campaign that, we wanted to do for the entire year, Black Queer Excellence. And what was important for me is making sure that our narrative is part of the Black experience. And I couldn't think of a better place than BET to have that rollout, is because, we are also part of the Black community. So we should be able to partake in every aspect of it in terms of, Black History Month, Pride Month, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of it, we are there. And so, regardless of what people may think, Black queers are part of the culture and the fabric of the community. And this was an initiative to kind of like say, hey, we're part of this part of our culture as well. And we definitely want to make sure that our voices are heard. We definitely need the exposure. Visibility is a path to acceptance. And acceptance is a path to, unity. And we got to get with what's going on. It's 2020. We can no longer be stuck in you over there, we over here, and we don't acknowledge you, and we're not gonna, too much of that. So we're all part of it. And I think it's very important that we express ourselves in terms of all of our Blackness. And so I think that was part of, what went into the ingredients of, the history campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that was pretty much it. Like, I think the kind of like elevator pitch, not that like there was one needed, but like the thing that like really sold it from me when Marcus and Empress brought it up was like, this is Black History Month, and like Black queer people are a part of Black History Month. And I was like, yes, that's it. that's it. That's the tweet.
That's the caption, period.
Not sorry.
Absolutely. And I think what was really powerful about that campaign was the fact that you saw many people in the queer community, in the Black queer community, that you may have already seen on social media and were familiar with, but you also saw people who you might not have known. And so you had so many people who were just normally like everyday folk who are out here doing amazing things, and they're being highlighted and celebrated just like anyone else. And I think that was the powerful moment.
I think another part of it too is just to kind of foster coalition building between the 29 people that we had. So after we did the campaign, we sent out an email just saying, you guys gather. If you need a therapist, now you have Alfonso, who focuses on therapy for queer people. Boom. If you need to raise money, now you have Noel, who helps with nonprofits. So that was the other part of it. Like, we are creating community on so many levels with this campaign. Well, with our franchise, so it's everything.
That's amazing. And I think one of you brought it up briefly, I think it was Marcus. It was part of a larger year-long campaign initiative. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Marcus and Empress have both come up with like a full slate of things that will fall under like BET Queer as Fuck. We're toying around a couple different names just to like rebrand it. We want it to be bigger. I think BET Queer as Fuck in that name or that iteration was like really important because like we wanted to come out in a big way. We wanted to be splashy. We wanted it to be impactful. And now it's time for us to grow, right? Like it's now moving from critical acclaim to commercial success. And that involves, you know, tapping into like brand sponsorships and like brand partnerships, again, for the purpose of reaching like a wider audience. And so obviously with shelter at home mandates, like we are rethinking like what some of those things look like. But we absolutely have, you know, full intentions to carry the baton and like keep this thing going. Not just on like in the social realm, but also like just with queer content on BET in general, right? So we have Boomerang and 20s that are on like the linear network with Lena Waithe. Lena Waithe is on both of those. But then like also she's written in queer characters, like in like as part of like the ensemble cast or as like the lead star for both of those shows. Also there's Wig Out, which is on like our YouTube channel, which is like a digital original exclusively for YouTube. So, and then also on the editorial front, we have a bunch of partnerships. We did a 3-part series with Haley Sahar from Pose, just about her transition journey. So like it has become a 360 movement at the brand with like a lot of input from different departments and like different stakeholders to like make sure that like we are actually showing up and like having something to say that is contributing to the Black LGBTQ narrative, but then also trying to do it in a way that, and I keep coming back to this, that's authentic and like real and involves the people that who actually have these lived experiences. The fact that Lena Waithe is the showrunner and like lead writer for 20s, and Ben Corey Jones is also like a Black gay writer who was the showrunner for Boomerang, us with Queer as Fuck, George Johnson, who is typically the editor at large for all of our Pride content in June, and like a major driving voice for all of like our editorial, like our queer editorial content, just like making sure like that there are those like touch points for each thing that we are releasing under this moniker, and then growing it into like a larger content arm.
That's amazing. Anything to add from Empress and Marcus?
Ryan said it. He got it.
Yeah. Not much to add to that.
Mic drop. No, so as you mentioned, Ryan, since everyone's been sheltered in place now and everything is mainly moved online and into social media, it's perhaps become even more important, social media as, you know, a tool for connection and social change. And with that comes the opportunity for LGBTQ culture to expand on these digital platforms where it's already existed, but expand to different circles. But it also leaves the opportunity for it to become appropriated. And you see that, and you know, I know TikTok has had a booming presence in this quarantine, things like that. So what are your thoughts on this on appropriation as it pertains to the work that you do, and as it pertains to, you know, the future of showing, you know, this LGBTQ content and inclusivity?
For sure. Like as I mentioned with Ballroom, the safe space, I am super protective of Ballroom specifically, just because like it was a part of like my formative years. Like even when the announcement of Pose like came out, like I was really apprehensive about how that was gonna go. There's a new show on HBO Max, Legendary, that like I'm also on the fence about, but I know seeing that Ryan Murphy brought in the correct people to be able to tell those stories, and seeing that HBO has tapped Leomi, they've tapped, oh my gosh, what is his name? It's escaping me right now.
Jack?
Yes. So like the fact that like these people that like I know and love are a part of this is the thing that kind of like makes it more comfortable for me. And then obviously like seeing the final product. And then the same thing here at BET is like, I don't want it to ever, and I've told Empress and Marcus this, I don't want it to ever come to a place where BET is co-opting a space that's in existence. I would much rather us align with the people that are already there and already doing the work or already creating the content and uplifting them or providing them a platform, as opposed to like us just jumping in. It's like, all right, well, now we're taking over, because like we've seen that happen so often. And thinking about this in a way that like is long term, and like knowing that we want to like really solidify our support of the community and like our voice within the community and uplift those voices that are there, it will be so much more effective if we just provide, you know, the resources and the tools for people to do the amazing things that they're already doing, but just to like a larger scale.
Yeah, so I think the word that you used, authenticity, is really important, especially when you think of, I guess, the past, the past, what LGBTQ people have attributed to BET in the past, and how there've been, you know, mixed opinions and feelings about the content on BET pertaining to LGBTQ folks, just because for a long time it didn't exist. So what would you say to, you know, young folks or at any age, just talking or looking for content on BET? What would you say is like branding BET as, you know, a safe space for queer people?
I would say stay tuned. There's so much more coming. I was literally looking at some comps today for some really exciting things that we have rolling out for June. So there's definitely like things that are in the pipeline, but also it's one of those things that like hold us accountable, right? Like that's one of the things that like I look for. I myself like am challenging people internally, both as an employee of BET and also as just like a consumer of content that comes out of BET. The best thing is to hold us accountable. Obviously, like my preference is that is done with like grace and like understanding of like where we have come from and where we're trying to go, and like the space between those two things. But yeah, it's just one of those things, like continue to ask for it, continue to say like, hey, I want to see myself here, because in all reality, like there is no other place like BET. BET is the number one location, the number one destination for Black content, and has been for the past 18 years. And so for there to be as large of a gap, or as large of like a delta as there is in our representation of, you know, Black queer content, it's one of those things that like I really wanted to see change quickly. And so now that we have like started to like release things and like started to like put, you know, some steps in motion to acquire new things, or like to create new things, or like to uplift new people, it is a long and arduous process, you know, getting those wheels turning. But once they go, it is full steam ahead.
Great. You know, just thinking long term, I know you've mentioned that you have some things in the works for upcoming months and in June for Pride Month. I'd love to know what the future for this franchise looks like in terms of branching outside of just the Queer as Fuck moniker. You know, are you planning to bring this to a larger audience, just also outside of BET? You know, I know a lot of folks obviously, you know, have a connection to BET because it's particularly Black entertainment television. But are you also looking to expand to the general public in terms of people outside of the Black community? Or is it more so you want to keep this as a particularly Black initiative?
I'm gonna say this, and I'm kind of gonna toss to Marcus just because we've had conversations about this specifically. I think that, and this is true of many spaces created specifically for people of color or marginalized communities in general, right? Like there are so many representations of so many representations of queer culture that do not include Black people, that do not include people of color. And those spaces are numerous and they are everywhere. And so while, you know, I think that there is something to be said for, you know, taking Black queer culture to the masses, I think that there's also something to be said for creating this content with us in mind. And if you know, happen to walk past our party, see some things that you like, by all means, feel free to like cheer us on. But like, for now, I am most fervently interested in creating this content specifically for us.
And I would add to that and say yes. Definitely want to get as much exposure as possible, branching as far as possible within the BET audience, outside the BET audience, but definitely making sure that we're creating content that represents the Black queer community. As Ryan has said, you know, there's plenty of content, queer content, and not a lot really specifically focuses on the Black queer experience, which I feel is very unique because, you know, on one hand, you know, there's a challenge when you're representing as queer with the Black community, and then there's another challenge representing as Black with the overall queer community. And so there is a very unique intersection that is unique and marketable and needs to be presented as that. And I think that the visibility and the exposure, as long as we continue to push for it, will bring that reality to the surface. And that's what needs to happen because, you know, we're here, we're buying products. We have the cash.
We got the coins.
And so, you know, I need something that speaks specifically to me and my demographic and my population for me to, you know, actually, have pride in that and to know that I matter, you know? So it's very important that this be part of the rollout in the future in terms of getting content out there. So yes, definitely keeping it, you know, Black and queer.
In a similar vein, I know that, you know, from personal experience, there's always seemed to be a divide between being Black and being queer, and it feels as though you have to pick one or the other. So I think that this particular campaign is so important because you can combine those, you know, and really create an intersectional experience and elevate those stories. So I was wondering if you've had any, what your response has been from just the general Black community who doesn't identify as queer, because I know sometimes it's felt maybe a little at odds, as though you have to kind of choose.
I think, go ahead,
Go
Mark.
ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I think there have been, real quick, there's been mixed reviews, you know? So, you know, because there is a, you know, I want to say a thing, you know, when it comes to Black masculinity, and you know, some people feel challenged in that area when we talk about Blackness and queerness, because historically there's been a challenge in, you know, representing Black masculinity on the screen and the political conversation around that. So that leans towards some comments or reviews that have been, you know, a little sketchy. And then you have the Black queer that has, you know, risen in terms of exposure and acceptance. And it's like, yeah, we're here, you know, we're in different flavors. And, you know, we have effeminate gay men, we have, you know, effeminate lesbians and masculine lesbians. And there's 1,000 colors between gay and straight. And so that becomes a real conversation and celebration. So it's both. And I think as time goes on, that shock to the system will lessen and there'll be more acceptance.
Yes, for sure. I think the point of us coming together and becoming the Power Rangers is just to make see yourself content, honestly. If you don't identify as queer, gay, lesbian, trans, whatever, you have someone in your family who is. You sit across from someone at work, you go to church with someone who is queer, right? So we want to make sure that the narratives that come through the pipeline represent the total Black community, because we are not a monolith, and we want to normalize what's actually happening in our communities, and also for us to start advocating for certain things, especially within the Black queer community, so that we can protect, love, save, nurture, and amplify all of us. And so that's a part of why BET Queer as Fuck is here and is not going anywhere.
Actually, that kind of leads me right into one of our viewer questions, which is, do you have any advice on holding your teams and other companies accountable for, how they present Black queer folks and what they do, I suppose?
For me, it is obviously like social is where I reside, right? So if you're looking to get my attention on something, it's going to be on social media, and that's whether you're responding to the BET's channels, whether you're responding to like my personal channels. It's just a matter of like having that conversation. I want to know, like, hey, I don't know if this was like the most accurate representation, or I don't know if this was, a necessary representation, or you guys really knocked that out of the park, and thank you for doing this and like, presenting something that I could see myself in. That is where, at least for this franchise, that's where we are able to kind of like mobilize quickly, because we're not like the linear team, right? Like we're not the ones that are programming the shows that are going to the television channel, which is a little bit more, it's a different process, and like they aren't as nimble as we are. And so if there are things that you're seeing in like the digital content or social content that like, hey, I would like to see this, hit me up, hit up the BET channel, like let us know, because like we see it, that we have conversations about it, and we will definitely try to like, implement it in some way if it's not already in the pipeline.
And I would add to that and say, definitely get involved. Definitely.
Also that.
Get involved, because Ryan spoke of social media being a tool to get involved, but we're coming to you. I'm calling, I'm on the phone, I'm in the community. And if I come to you, be open, get involved. Go to someone else who may have a connection to get involved and get your voice heard. Let us know what you want, what works, what doesn't work. And definitely do not think that your voice is not counted or heard, because it is.
Great. And for our final question of this conversation, how do you all stay inspired at a time like this?
Social media, Instagrams, my friends do what they do. Honestly, that there's so many awesome content creators out there. There's so many people just living their truth, just literally shining and moisturizing. That is all good stuff, good content. I mean, that's kind of the premise of how this all started. And yeah, social.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good question. I'm gonna say what helps me stay inspired, and it may be off the beaten path, is my connection and relationship with God. I gotta give it up a little bit for God to say that I have taken the time to really, without all the commuting and distractions, taking some time to really get to go within and kind of get into prayer, because there's a lot going on. A lot of loved ones have passed due to the virus. People have been affected in ways that I couldn't have even guessed or imagined. So it's given me some time to get with my creator and kind of just say, hey, what do I need to do in this? How can I help? How can I not lose hope and stay out of despair? And then when it gets too much, I get on the phone, I call somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I got to talk. And so connecting with human beings and actually praying is what's gotten me through this.
And you, Ryan?
For me, it's both of those things, right? It is taking time, like taking quiet time for meditation and reflection, for spiritual connection. It is for me, I'm on just about every social media platform. Twitter is my home. I spend a lot of time in the Instagram sheets as well. But like when I need quiet and like when I really want to just like look at like some really dope things and like think about like what's next for me, Tumblr is usually that, because like the quality of like images and creative is like insane, and you don't have to deal with like the back and forth of like opinions or questions. Or like it is literally like, this is my art, here you go. It's like a very, very, very well curated newsfeed over on Tumblr. And then just making sure that like to take time away. I don't know about like for you guys, like I'm fortunate enough to like to still be working through all of this, but like work got crazy the minute like it was working from home. It was like people did not understand, like just because I am working from home does not mean that I am on call 24/7. And so learning how to like set some really important boundaries and like some distance between myself and work has been, it was trying like the first 3 weeks because it was like, this is not sustainable. But like once I started to kind of like push back and like set those boundaries, it was like night and day shift.
Great. And I think to sum up perhaps this panel, how would you describe your queerness in one word?
Hard.
Very
fabulous.
Divine.
Ooh.
Ooh, that's a perfect way to end this up. To wrap this up. Well, I'd love to thank you all for being a part of this and contributing your time and your knowledge and your fun. This was a great time to like talk to you all and hear, about this initiative. And I am so excited to see all of the, new content that's going to be coming up. I cannot wait. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in and for staying with us. And if you're looking for more, you can also check out oneclub.org for more of these talks and different webinars during Creative Month. Have a nice day.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.